Today on GreenCars, the podcast, we discuss what you need to know about hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric vehicle maintenance for the long haul. What does it take to service an EV? Let's find out. Welcome to GreenCars, the podcast, where we talk about all things involving hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric vehicles. I'm Trish Close.
And I'm Dave Nichols. Today we explore what it really takes to service an electric vehicle as compared to a hybrid or plug-in hybrid. All three are different, and we'll bring in an expert to explain all.
And maintenance on an EV really is a lot different from a gas car, right?
It is, yeah. We're all used to servicing a traditional gasoline vehicle. You have to change oil and filters. You check the fluids. You check the hoses, belts, and seals.
And then maybe rotate tires, get new tires if needed.
Yep, unless you're our producer. He likes old tires. He thinks they're best. He says you can make tire swings out of them.
That sounds like him, but I agree.
Well, he's not wrong. But let's please get back to electric car service. EVs don't have engine oil, so there's no need for oil changes. Regenerative braking means that your brake components last a lot longer. For instance, EV brake pads last up to 100,000 miles before they need to be replaced.
Wow, that's incredible. Do electric cars even have fluids?
Well, most of the time the transmissions have two gears, forward and reverse, though some high-end EVs have two-speed transmissions. But there's gearbox fluid that you have to change every 80 to 120,000 miles, depending on the car make and model. You still have to check the brake fluid occasionally, but not nearly as often as in gas cars. And the steering is electrically assisted, so there's no power steering fluid to change.
All right, there's got to be some kind of fluid that we need to top off. Come on.
There is.
Okay.
The battery has a cooling system, and the coolant needs to be checked occasionally. You still have to add windshield wiper fluid.
Windshield wiper fluid, really?
Yes. So that'll give you something to do.
I need something to do. Well, this is going to be a very short show then, Dave, if that's all the maintenance that an EV needs.
No. Actually, there's a lot more to reveal, and we're going to bring in an expert on the subject. But first, it's time to check out the latest EV news.
Here's what's up. As reported by Automotive Dive, J.D. Power recently released its U.S. electric vehicle experience ownership study for 2024. It surveyed 4,650 EV and plug-in hybrid owners and found that plug-in hybrid owners are less satisfied with their cars than EV owners. According to Executive Director of EV Performance for J.D. Power, Brent Gruber, quote, expected lower running cost is a top purchase reason for EVs, but satisfaction with the cost of ownership is much lower for plug-in hybrids that retain the cost of maintaining a traditional powertrain, yet without the benefit of the extended electric driving range found in full battery electric vehicles.
However, as we reported on GreenCars, the study also found that EV owners are still dissatisfied with public charging access and limited battery range. But Gruber says, quote, as EVs extend to the broader market, minimizing problems will be key to meeting consumer expectations, end quote. Plus, it's expected that adopting Tesla's charging standard will help as other brands will be able to use the supercharger network.
CNBC tells us 90% of qualifying electric car buyers opt for the $7,500 new clean vehicle tax credit as an upfront payment. The Inflation Reduction Act has turned the federal tax credit for buying a new EV into an upfront discount, according to the Treasury Department, and that allows consumers to get the full credit regardless of tax liability. So, no waiting for tax season. You can get that upfront discount right at the dealership. It can even be used as part of the vehicle down payment. And advanced payments are also available for used EVs up to $4,000. The Treasury has issued more than $580 million in advanced payments for EV sales since January 1st.
Just amazing. Bloomberg reports that China's super cheap EVs may offer hope to the average American buyer. For instance, China's biggest EV maker, an automaker named BYD, has an all-electric car called the Seagull Hatchback, which is available for just $10,000. The Seagull features angular styling, a two-tone dashboard shaped like a seagull's wing, and 6 airbags. Infotainment is provided by a 10-inch rotating touchscreen. The company's slogan is Build Your Dreams, which is embossed across the rear of the vehicle. With 5 doors, the 4-seater is the smallest car in the BYD lineup and debuted in China in April 2023. By November of that year, the company had already sold over 200,000 units.
Wow.
The Seagull is currently being delivered to Europe and Asian markets. You can bet that BYD's cheap EV has American automakers sweating.
Yep, and that is never a pretty sight. Top Speed tells us that Harley-Davidson's EV initiative has revealed its third all-electric motorcycle model. Harley's EV wing is called Livewire. It reports the arrival of the new S2 Mulholland Street Cruiser. While Livewire's Del Mar model looks like a flat-track racer, the Mulholland is more like a muscle bike that utilizes Harley's Aero platform. It has a saddle height of 30.25 inches and weighs 429 pounds. The Mulholland has a range of 121 miles and will blast you from 0 to 60 in just 3.3 seconds.
Wow, that is fast.
Yeah.
Best of all, it has a retail price starting at $15,999, which is a lot less than the original Livewire one, which goes for $22,799.
Yeah. I'm just bummed that you can't buy a BYD Seagull here for $10,000.
Very true, but you can very likely buy a 1965 Buick Skylark, and that is what's up. Which takes us to our expert on servicing all-electric vehicles, Mr. Ken Erlin.
Ken is the Regional Fixed Operations Director for the Northwest at Lithium Motors and works on educating and training our automotive service technicians and advisors to be up to speed on the latest electric vehicle maintenance and service. Ken, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave and Trish. I appreciate you having me today.
First, Ken, could you take us through the difference in auto maintenance for a hybrid car compared to a traditional gas car?
Great question. Very similar in a lot of aspects. A hybrid incorporates both the use of an ICE engine or a traditional engine and an electric motor. So being the fact that it's coupled together, there are a lot of the same components in a hybrid that there is in a regular ICE vehicle. Now, you may get some extended mileage between intervals because of the transition between use of the gas motor and the electric. But you still have a crankcase with engine oil in it. You still have a form of transmission that changes gears that needs to be serviced and a lot of the regular components. So a hybrid does still have a lot of the same mechanical component maintenance needs as an ICE vehicle.
So for the consumer, there's not a lot of difference when you're talking about ongoing hybrid maintenance compared to gasoline-powered cars. But what about the difference in maintaining a plug-in hybrid? There's a bigger battery pack. You might go through tires faster because of the batteries weighing more. And the composition of the rubber is different as well, isn't it?
Dave, great question again. Yes, a true BEV, electric vehicle, actually does not have a crankcase, so you're not dealing with any type of engine oil changes. The gearboxes that they use or gear reduction is generally one speed, but does still have fluid in it. But there's a lot less temperature fluctuation under the hood of an EV than that you have versus an ICE vehicle. So some of those maintenance needs as far as servicing are far more stretched out. Now, you'd mentioned tires and some of the differences. The weight of an EV vehicle is far greater traditionally than an ICE vehicle because of the weight of the battery pack and the way that's distributed amongst the vehicle. So you do have some additional wear potentially on tires, suspension components, things like that. So there are still some maintenance needs and a great reason to have a professional take a look at your car.
Are any of the fluids different in a plug-in hybrid?
They are. There's some different needs. As I mentioned, there's some temperature differences that happen between the vehicles. Also, there are some concerns with conductivity. The coolant systems used to cool the batteries need to make sure that they're non-conductive for an EV vehicle. I'd mentioned transmission. The transmissions don't shift necessarily in an EV vehicle, but it is a gearbox. So it traditionally uses more of a gear oil than it does an actual automatic transmission or a standard fluid.
So Ken, the big question is, how often do you really need to bring your EV in for service, and what is checked?
So in my professional opinion, every vehicle should at least be looked at annually. So once every 12 months for a number of reasons. Cars operate in adverse conditions, whether it's weather or road conditions. And anything that drives down the road that has rubber on the road, goes over a lot of possible potholes or differences, should have a professional take a look at it. Not to mention, I had mentioned that additional weight. We're still learning a lot about EVs as they evolve very quickly in the last few years. And we want to make sure that we understand, the movement and geometry and the suspension, those needs for things like brakes. Now, a lot of them are using regenerative brakes, and we actually are seeing more longevity with actual brake pads. But as a professional, I still would have somebody take a look and make sure we don't have anything going on, possibly a rock getting in there or anything happening prematurely that we wouldn't be aware of if we didn't physically look at it once a year.
Another thing I've heard, Ken, is that sometimes hybrids and certainly EVs use different fluids. For instance, I hear that they require DOT 5.1 brake fluid. Is that true?
So they do. It's obviously a standard in the industry to use a high grade brake fluid these days, but ultimately to make sure, again, a non-conductive fluid, a very well performing fluid for heat situations, because you are stopping a larger mass of weight in an EV vehicle. So there potentially could be some additional temperatures in there, and you want to make sure you have the best fluid in there to maintain its ability to hold those braking pads in the right place under those conditions.
Ken, let's talk tires. Why are EV tires different from regular tires used in gas cars?
Probably one of the big differences is load ratings. You are dealing with heavier weights on the vehicle, so you do need to make sure that you have the proper tire to handle that weight. The distribution of weight is a little bit different because most batteries sit more centered in the vehicles. In a lot of vehicles these days, where they're front wheel drive, a lot of our weight distribution comes from up front. So there are some differences there. It is important that you maintain your tires, obviously, because of that excess weight. We have seen some earlier wearing patterns in some of these vehicles because of the excessive weight. And again, that's why I suggest that somebody takes a look at your vehicle at least once a year to make sure that they're properly inflated, making sure they're wearing properly, you're maintaining the proper alignment so that wheel sits on the road in the best optimal position for not only minimizing rolling resistance, but to also make sure we have the best stopping ability.
Ken, should you use nitrogen instead of air in EV tires? Does nitrogen actually help the tires last longer?
I actually think nitrogen is a great option. Ultimately, removing any moisture molecules out of the tire stabilizes pressure fluctuation with temperature change. So you don't see the pressure go up and down nearly as much. And a stable tire pressure allows you to maintain the appropriate tire pressure level so that tire, again, can perform to the best of its ability, whether it's minimizing rolling resistance or making sure you have the appropriate patch of tire on the road when you're trying to stop that vehicle also. Nitrogen is a great option. I actually recommend it for all vehicles.
Ken, in your experience, do you see dealerships dragging their feet a bit on EV needs, like setting up level 2 chargers for customers and so forth?
Great question. I wouldn't say dragging their feet, but obviously we're in a very fast-paced evolution right now. And that technology is still changing very quickly also. So even in the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of advancements in battery technology and charging capabilities and the software that the vehicles are utilizing to maximize range. So we're trying to stay on top of those needs and quickly adjust. I think what's really important is, in my position, is to make sure that our teams that represent us are helping our customers understand what's most important to maintain their vehicle to the best of their ability for both safety, staying clean air compliant, and longevity of that vehicle. And that is changing real quickly, but we are really trying to stay on top of all that technology and evolution, make sure our people understand it and are educated and can communicate with their clients, the best way to maintain their vehicle to the best of their ability for that performance level.
And Ken, you work on educating and training service techs and advisors on electric vehicles. So what special training do mechanics need to go through in order to support EVs?
Great question, Trish. Most of the training that we deal with comes from our manufacturers, and actually we need to make sure that our technicians are certified and prepared to work on those vehicles as they come up. Obviously, electric vehicle is far different than a ICE vehicle of the past. dealing with high voltage. So there's some safety requirements. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some additional weights with battery packs. So there's some special tools if in fact you have to remove a battery pack. So we stay on top of the latest tools and training that become available by the manufacturer to make sure we're properly prepared to take care of that vehicle to the best of our abilities.
And as far as mechanics go that work on gas vehicles and making that switch to additional training for electric vehicles, what would you tell the mechanics who are making that switch over to get additional training for EVs?
Well, a traditional mechanic has always dealt with, or at least in the past 20, 30 years, with evolution of technology, just because of emission requirements and safety requirements that are mandated on vehicles. So they're used to staying up on training and change, but this is a pretty drastic change for our industry. We've gone to high voltage battery packs that are in a vehicle, and they do bring some potential safety hazards if not approached properly with appropriate tools and training to do so. And there's a lot of new software technology and advancements on those vehicles to maintain battery charges and some of the different conditions that have come up with EV vehicles compared to an ICE vehicle. But it's definitely a different animal, so to speak, but one that I think is welcomed as technology continues to forge forward.
We've been talking about setting up annual mobile checkups for level 2 chargers. Can you tell us why you think that's important?
Sure. Obviously, like everything, and we're learning very quickly as time goes on, some of the cause and conditions that happen to these vehicles. And one of the needs that we've seen come up is making sure that our charge points and our charge connectors are at an optimal level. It's very important we're able to charge that battery efficiently and making sure that that vehicle is able to reach its ability to charge in a certain period of time. And connectivity on the connectors and making sure all that equipment is operating properly is very important to make sure that that's sustainable going forward. I do believe that's a service that we'll see happen quite a bit in the industry as we go forward and we see people having self-chargers at home.
Well, Ken, you've given us a lot to think about, and we'd love to have you back soon on the podcast. One last question. What car do you drive?
Great question, Trish. I actually drive a Dodge pickup truck. I do so because I tow a lot. In my few moments of recreational time, I do spend it in the mountains towing, and unfortunately, the EVs haven't quite reached the ability to have the tow capacity of some traditional vehicles.
And if you had an EV, which one would you buy?
Well, I have to say that Ford Lightning is pretty impressive to me, but I did see the new Tesla truck the other day roll off, and that looks kind of intriguing too. Maybe something a little bit DeLorean looking like. So that had my interest also.
It kind of looks like a refrigerator though, doesn't it?
It does. It's a little space aged.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Ken, and welcome to the GreenCars, the podcast family.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
What a cool guy. So much information. I'm so glad he's on our team.
Yep, same here. Super great guy. And now it's time to peel back the soiled banana peel of your questions as we enter the GreenCars mailbag. Who first, Trish?
Okay, first letter comes from Bill Jennings of Pasadena, California, who writes, what are the advantages of owning a hybrid car?
Ah, yes. Well, according to GreenCars Facts, by combining an electric motor with a gas engine, hybrid cars offer improved fuel economy and performance compared to a gasoline vehicle.
Okay.
They also deliver reduced greenhouse gas emissions thanks to the electric motor taking on some of the burden of moving the car around at low speeds. But the most important advantage of a hybrid car is that it fits easily into any lifestyle. You don't need to change any of your driving habits. You just enjoy the improved economy and satisfaction of doing your part for the environment.
There you have it. Let's take a look at some of the comments we're getting on social media. We received a number of Instagram comments about EV longevity. Lone Wolf 27 writes, how long do electric cars last?
Well, because the powertrains are less complex than gas cars, there's a whole lot less to go wrong with an EV. Properly inspected and maintained, we would expect that electric cars will last longer than any gasoline car.
Okay.
Most manufacturers offer 8 or even 10-year warranties on the battery components. And speaking of the battery packs, they're built to outlast the life of the EV.
Wow, that's incredible. Big Thunder Biscuit asks, I hear that when an EV gets into a fender bender, they are a nightmare to fix. Is this true?
Well, Big Thunder Biscuit, it can be. We're going to delve into that very subject in future episodes. We'll visit a body shop and we'll see what happens when you have to do body work on an electric car. It often takes longer and costs more because you have to take the whole heavy battery pack,
Right.
remove it, power it down, and all that before you can even start work.
So maybe a little bit of a nightmare. Look forward to hearing more about that. And thank you for all of your comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you're watching these episodes, please drop us a comment on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, we'd love for you to leave us a comment on any of our social media platforms.
We have covered a lot in this episode, Trish.
We have. My head hurts. It's hurting.
Well, you know, as comedian George Gobel once said, if it weren't for electricity, we'd all be watching television by candlelight.
Okay, George.
He said
Dave,
that. He said that.
I have no
It's a
words for you.
True quote.
Don't forget, when it comes to EVs, stay informed, stay charged. We'll see you next time. Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com. Watching on YouTube or Apple Podcasts? Don't forget to like and subscribe. We love your 5-star reviews.